This conference will now be recorded.
So in our previous class,
I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
This conference will now be recorded.
So in our yesterday's class, we were discussing about data transforms, and we have discussed something like superclass data transforms also, and the importance of py default data transform. And we can able to call this data transform from many places. I can able to call this on actions like on checkbox clicking on or link clicking or the button clicking, any kind of actions from the control, or we can able to call this call from flow actions as well, either in the pre-processing or the post-processing. We can able to call this from activities also. Okay, so this is what we have discussed, and we can able to do either updating the whole page using data transform, or we can able to update the pages of page list from one page list to another page, or we can able to go for direct property set also. What we can able to do everything with activities. And we have designed one section where we can able to capture both details like section as well as shipping as well as the billing. So if both the sections are same, then customer can able to directly go for that particular checkbox, using which we will be running one data transform and we'll be copying the data from one page to another page. So this will be the real example. So this is our main section. For that, what we have done is we have created one main section, and in that I'll be including two different sections. So the purpose what I'm trying to show here is, if I'm marking this one, data transform has to be executed, and it will be copying the data, put it in the clipboard, and from the clipboard we have to get the data copied here. So that will not be done unless we are refreshing the whole section. So this whole section has to be refreshed. It will be interacting with the clipboard, and it has to get the updated data. If you are just refreshing this particular thing only on clicking this one, then only this section will be refreshed. Why? Because this will be a separate section, and we are using this particular checkbox into that section, right? And this will be refreshing only this part. Our requirement is to refresh the whole section. Suppose if this dynamic layout is also within this, then you can directly go for refresh the section. Why? Because this will be refreshing this section, and we are having this billing details section also, billing details part also in this section only. So it will be refreshing whole section like shipping and billing. We can able to get the data updated. So just to show you how to refresh the other section, I'm going with this approach. So in the real time also, first if you are not getting the output, you have to just check for the clipboard. Once we get the data ready on the clipboard, there is no mistake of the data transfer. So the mistake what we are trying to do is we are trying to copy the data. So we're not trying to pull the data perfectly from clipboard to our page. For that, refreshing might be missing somewhere, or property mapping will not be proper sometimes. So that is the thing. So if I just run this, so here we'll be getting this kind of screen. Whatever the details we are entering, so that will be automatically captured by just clicking on this one. So you can, by just clicking on this one, it will be automatically entered. Data transform will be running, and it will be copying the whole page from shipping to billing. So here we are getting the updated data, meaning we are refreshing the whole section, meaning this part is also getting refreshed. So that is the concept there. Now we'll look into another requirement. So this is also most practical thing what I'm trying to say now. So yesterday I already told you. Let us put one link here, link or the button. So like clearing the fields or clearing the addresses. So if you just go for a link or the button, then what we have to do, on clicking on this, we have to run one data transform, using which, suppose if this is in this situation. So if I'm just clicking on that particular link, I can able to run one data transform. Using this, I want to reset all these values. This should be editable as it is, and I have to make this unchecked. Okay, I have to make this unchecked, and I have to clear all these fields and make like an editable. So this is how it should be looking like if I'm just clicking on clear button. So however it is, however it might be, on clicking on that clear fields link, I should be getting this kind of thing. Okay, let us work on that now. I'm trying to go to that section. So let us include one link here. So check out this rule. I'm trying to include either link or button, whatever you want, you can include. I'm trying to include 1 week. So double click on the link to change the meaningful value. Clear all fields. Okay. On clicking on this, what we have to do, we have to run one activity, right? So for that, let me create one new activity. So on clicking on this, I have to run the activity. So something like clear all fields data transform. I'm opening it here from directly from here. So click on create and open. So what I have to do, on clicking on this, I have to run this activity, and using which I have to clear these fields. So let us go one by one. So I can able to directly update this page, right? So this whole page I can able to update each and every property, or I can able to directly go for individual property to blank also. So let me take the update page. What should be the page? So this should be billing page or shipping, whatever the thing. So what should be the value to be updated? Door number should be updated to blank. Okay. Landmark should be updated to blank. So zip code. So this will be done. So this whole thing will be updated. I mean, it will be updated to blank initially. Then after next, what we have to do, we have to make this also editable, right? These values are so to be cleared off. So let me update the second page as well. So add one step parallel to this. I'm going for update page, or you can able to directly go for set also. What other thing you can go for that. So set shipping dot door number is equal to blank. Landmark equal to blank. Zip code equal to blank. So as of now, what it has to do, it has to clear all these fields as well as these fields. And now we have to mark this also unchecked. Okay, if this is unchecked, everything will be reset here. So if this is unchecked, this will be becoming editable. Okay, if this is marked, this will be turned to read only, right? So I have to make this unchecked also. So for that, you can directly go for property set, where is billing and shipping. This particular value, I'm making it as a false. That's it. Save this. Okay, I have created one data transform, and I want to call this data transform on clicking on this button. So submit this, save it. So I'm refreshing it now. Clear, right? What we did? So I'm trying to enter a few values, and now if I just check this, behavior should not be disturbed. This is working fine. And if I'm unchecking this is also working fine. Now I'm entering few details here. If I click on this, data transform has to be executed, and it is not working for this. So let me check again. So this is not working for this here. Can you tell me why it's not working?
Being addressed on only this billing section, right?
Sorry?
Uh, this data transform. We add this on this billing section, so it only refreshing the.
Yes. So the thing here is, on clicking on this, we have to refresh whole section. So for that, we have to mark this and change this to other section refresh. So if I run this section, then automatically the whole section will be refreshed. Although by this time I did not make any changes here. Now I'm clicking here. So I'm clicking here. So if I just click on clipboard, what are the values I should be seeing for shipping as well as the billing? Billing, we don't have data, as well as Shipping also we don't have data, meaning data transform is perfectly working. On clicking on this, data transform is perfectly working, and we can able to see this value also unchecked. If I click on this, if I now click on clipboard, I can able to see. So this value is not getting updated, and it will not be having, sorry, it will be having both the pages blank. So even this value got updated, right? So it is marking itself to false. So it is updating perfectly in the clipboard, meaning data transform is executing perfectly, but we are not getting the values properly from clipboard to here. So the thing here is we're trying to refresh the whole section, what we are missing it. So did I give that? Yes. So submit and save this, and now refresh. It should be working fine now. Submit like this, this will be clearing, I mean this will be copying the data perfectly. Now clear this. So everything got reset, right? So this data has been cleared off, this will be cleared off, and once this is unchecked, we'll be getting this editable automatically. Okay, so this is the thing. These are the most important business real-time scenarios using data transforms. You practice it. Once you practice it, you'll be having a lot of things to explore. You can able to go for lots of other scenarios also. It will be very helpful for you. So this is all about data transforms. Any doubts? So once you are clear, we'll be going to the next topic. Tulani, now clear? No, I think in
Yeah,
the
we
first.
are okay.
Yeah, first day asked me about the importance of data transform with activities.
Yes.
Right? So now clear,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, Chandra. Because I always confuse with activities with
No,
data
there will be
transform.
lots of difference.
Yeah.
Do not confuse anything here. There will be lot of difference. You understood, Uma? Clear as of now?
Yes, Chandra. In activities, we pull all data and from the clipboard and pass on to the table, right? So here the
Yeah, with
data
activities we can
transform,
able to
we
do
are
many things. Yeah, yeah.
copying the clipboard data and checking the pages value from first and second page, right? Page and list values.
Yeah. This is as per our business requirement. I mean, as per our example. Likewise, in any of the example also, if you want to copy the data from one place to another place, or if you want to clear the fields, or if you want clear the fields, meaning assigning the, I mean, setting the blank values to the particular property. Ultimately, it should be the property set only all the time. Okay, and we can
Okay.
able to do the conditional basis also. So that is what we are trying to do. For that, we can able to go for when conditions. Yesterday we have seen, right? And we can able to call for what data transform from activity also. Let me show you that as well.
Okay.
So this is also important. In case they'll ask you.
Mm.
Sorry. So here what we are trying to do is we're trying to call one data transform here, right? So instead, let me call this activity. Sorry, let me call this data transform into activity, and I'll show you how to call the activity from here. So first, let me create one new activity. So clear address fields. Okay, and create and open. Now what we have to do is I have to run the data transform, and that too via activity, and for that I have to know the method how to call data transform from activity. For that there will be one thing called apply data transform. Okay, apply data transform is one method where we can able to call data transform from this activity. So for this I have to give one activity name, right? Expand this, and here it will be asking for the activity name. So give the activity. So this is my activity. So this is the activity I want to call. On clicking on that, I'm saving it. So what it has to do now? So on clicking on this, PRPC has to run. So on clicking on this, PRPC will be running data transform as per this design. But now I want to run the activity. So this is the activity. On running this activity, what it has to do, it has to check for this, and in turn it will be running this data transform only. It will be clearing all this, and it will be clearing this also. So instead, can't I do everything with the activities here? I can directly go for property set, right? Let me show you for one thing. So property set, I want one of the property value like is ship and bill same is equal to false. So I'm doing like this. And parallelly, let me remove it from here. So I'm commenting this one. I'm saving this. So what it has to do now? So if I run this activity, if I'm clicking on this particular link, it has to run the activity and it has to call the data transform. As per the data transform, it will be clearing only billing page details as well as the shipping page details. This will not be executed. Okay. Instead, in order to make this to be, in order to make this to be false, I'm trying to go for property set. So once this activity is successfully done, it has to come back to the previous parent calling, right? I'm calling this data transform from this activity. So initially activity has to be executed, and in activity it has to execute the data transform. All the steps of this data transform are to be executed. Then it will be coming back to the main parent calling, that is activity, and it will be executing the remaining steps. So in the remaining step, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to set this value as false. So operation will be same. Okay, how are we doing is up to business requirement. Okay, so now let us run and check. So on clicking on this, we'll be getting all these values. Now on clicking on this, we are not getting this one. I think we are not refreshing it properly. I think I have not saved this. Okay, on clearing this, everything got set, right? So you can able to trace the same. So now click on tracer to trace the same. What it will be doing from the beginning, we can able to check. So on clicking on this, what it is doing, initially it is running the activity. So in activity, it is doing apply data transform. In apply data transform, it is executing the data transform first. It is clearing everything, and finally step 2 will be completed. So step 1 of this particular activity will be completed. Then after, it has to set the property value of this one to false. So this is what it has to do. So we have to understand each and everything by the tracer only. So if you understand, if you make a habit of understanding everything with the tracer, then you will be understanding most of the things what PRPC is doing internally. Okay, so this kind of implementations, not only you, anyone can able to do. But how PRPC is doing, you have to understand that behavior. So interviewers will be expecting those kind of things. Okay, so what are we discussing? That is okay, but there has to be some difference between uh, talented people and the normal people, no? So that is the thing, that is the way interviewers will be expecting. They will be expecting whether they have some knowledge how PRPC is behaving or not. So if they know how PRPC is behaving, then they can able to understand everything and they can able to do in the well organized way. So that is what they expect. And that completely depends upon the project requirement. If they are having urgent need, then they will be asking basic questions only. That's secondary. Okay, you clear this? Clear with this, right? This is working fine. Both of you clear now? In this way, we can able to call from activities also. And in order to call the activity, in order to call this data transform from active, so this is our data transform, right? Here, if we want to call another data transform, there will be one method called apply data transform. So I can able to call this data transform from many places. We can able to have this called from validation, validation tab, actions tab of the flow action. That is like pre-processing and the post-processing, and we can able to call this called from direct control actions, and we can able to call this from flow as well. Okay, so these are all the places. So next we'll discuss about validations. Okay, so I think this will be interesting for you. So now we'll discuss about validations. So validations will be of two types, not only in pega, in every technology this is common. What are the things we're discussing now? This is common. Validations will be of two types, that is client side validation and server-side validation. This is generic in any technology like .NET, pega, sorry, Java or anything. So what is client-side validation? What is server-side validation? Suppose if you want to apply some validations here. So first name should be mandatory, last name should be mandatory, and first name value should not be equal to the last name, and date of birth should be of number format only. It should not be accepting strings. So these kind of things we have to provide in the validations, right? So client side validation meaning after entering any values in the first name property or any property, if we just click on tab out, if you want to show any kind of messages, okay. So if you want to show any kind of messages on just clicking on just tabbing out it. So finally, what I'm trying to say is client-side validations will be directly showing before we clicking on submit button. Before we clicking on submit button, if you want to show some kind of messages, that will be called as client-side messages. So this will be completely handled out by HTML or JavaScript. HTML and JavaScript only. It will not be interacting with the backend server, that is Java. On clicking on submit button, it has to interact with the backend server Java, and from there it will be getting some kind of errors whether we are not giving if we are not giving the proper input. Okay, so client side validation meaning before clicking on submit button, to be more clear, before button click, and server side validation meaning after button click. So before button click, if you want to show any kind of messages, then we can able to go for client side. And once we enter all this data, I'm trying to enter the same data, let us say DAST. So both are same. And if you want to enter, if you want to have the customer between age between 18 to 65 only, then I'm trying to enter something like this. And if the phone number is not of 10 digits, I'm trying to enter like this. Now if I click on submit button, I should be what PRPC has to do. PRPC has to capture all these records and it has to put it in the server. So server has to interact with this particular data and it has to say first name should not be equal to the last name and age should not be outside like 18 to 65 and phone number is not 10 digits. So these kind of error messages will be getting out from the server. So on clicking on submit button, data will be pushed to the Java and Java will be interacting and saying like the data what it is expecting is not in the correct format. So those kind of validations are called as server side validations. And if without clicking on submit button, we can able to see this example. On just tabbing out, I'm getting some error, right? So how are we getting this? PRPC is using one OOTB client side validation here. Okay. So I'm entering something like this one. Now it is accepting. And now I'm removing it and clicking on submit button. So what it is showing? It is showing something like this one. So this error message is getting displayed before button click only. Okay, after button click also, first this property will be stopping us. So it will not be interacting with the Java server here. Okay, so there will be two kinds of validation, that is client side validation as well as the server side validation. So now in pega, how we can able to make this validations applicable? Okay, in order to apply for the in order to use for either client side or server side in pega, we can able to go for three rules. So for validations we'll be having three rules to be created. We can go for any of these three rules as per business requirement. So one rule is to create validate. Validate is one of the rule which will be there under process category. And the next one is edit validate rule, which will be created under data model. Okay, and next one is constraints. So this is like a decision. So we call this as a declare constraints. So this can be created under decision category. So in pega we can able to achieve for the validations in by creating three different rules. That is validate rule, we call this as an obj validate also. Why? Because this is an instance of rule obj validate. Okay, and this rule we call it as an edit validate rule, and this is an instance of rule edit validate. Okay, and this is a constant rule. This will be created in a decision category. I don't remember the instance class name. If you want to get it, you can able to get it using PZ dynasty. Okay, so clear, right? So what is the importance of these three and what are the differences? Let us discuss. And first, let us discuss about this validate rule. First like validate rule. So this validate rule is also called as an OBJ validate. So once this particular rule has been created, so OBJ validate rule is completely server-side validation. If you want to have server-side validations in Pega, we can go for validate rule creation. Okay, and these will be like client-side validations. We'll discuss that. So if you want to go for server-side validation, we have to go for this one. So what is this doing? If I'm trying to create one rule like validate, which will be acting like in server, whatever the data I'm trying to enter here now. If I'm trying to enter some data like this, so it will not be putting out any errors. Why? Because it has to interact with the server only. No, as I told you, this is a server-based validation. So whatever the errors and whatever the conditions we are providing. So what should be the conditions? First name should not be equal to the last name. That is one condition. And age should be between 18 to 65 years. That is my second condition. And phone number should not be should be 10 characters. This is my three conditions. Let us say. Now, if I just click on submit button, PRPC has to interact with this particular rule. I'll be calling this rule from somewhere. I'll tell you. PRPC has to interact with this new validate rule what we're trying to create. Then it will has to interact with the server, and then it has to just check all the conditions what I'm defining. So there it will be defining first name is equal to last name, and it has to put one error message. And age is not equal to 18. Sorry, age is not in between 18 to 65. For that, it will be throwing one error message, and phone number is not of 10 digits. So for this three, it will be showing some error message after it interacting with the Java server only. Okay. So if this is your requirement, if you want to just check for the validations after clicking on submit button, we can go for this kind of rule, OBJ validate rule. Okay. And there will be something called edit validate rule also, using which we can able to directly have this kind of HMS. So these kind of things. So before interacting with the server only, if you want to show any kind of error messages, we'll be going for this rule, edit validate. Clear, right? And this particular edit validate rule has to be called on property level. Why? Because on just tabbing out, it has to just check for the condition. So what should be the condition? It should be of proper mail structure, and it should be of 10 digits. Okay, and it should be of between 18 to 65. So these kind of conditions has to be automatically checked by this particular control on tabbing out. So for that, we'll be going for edit validate rule. Okay, for edit validation, we'll be just checking for the particular property condition then and there before interacting with the server only. And validate rule will be interacting with the server first, meaning on clicking on submit button, we will be calling this particular validate rule what we are trying to create across flow action level. Once clicking on submit button, what it has to do, section has to be completed and this flow action has to be submitted and it has to interact with the server. So then flow action rule has to be calling this flow action rule has to be included with this validate rule what we're trying to create now, and that will be just checking for all the conditions there. Once the conditions are satisfying only, it will be going to the next screen. Else it will not be going to the next screen. It will be stopping us in the same page. All these are mandatory and the data should be proper. So that is the reason flow action will not be submitted if this particular validate rule is not passing. Okay, mostly we will be going for validate rule only even in the real cases, but there might there will be usage of declare constraints as and edit validate also. Okay, mostly we'll be going for this one. Clear, right? We can able to call this validate rule from flow action. Just now I told you, right? I can able to call this validate rule across flow action. So I cannot able to call this across each and every property. Okay, why? Because this is not an client-side validation. So this is just a server-side validation using which I can able to have only server-side validation. Server-side validation meaning on clicking on submit button only. On clicking on submit button, what actually it has to do? Flow action has to be submitted. So there I have to call this particular validate rule in the flow action. And similarly, I can able to go for this particular validate rule to be called from activity also. I can able to call this validate rule from activity. On clicking on submit button, if you want to go for activity, if you want to call one activity, so that activity can able to copy the data and it can able to process it for database or something. And before that, if you want to just validate whether the data you are trying to insert is correct or not, so then I'll be just creating one validate rule, and I'll be calling this on button click. Once the validate rule has been done, I mean, using activity, there will be one method called obj validate. Obj validate is a method name where I can able to call one validate rule. So once this validate rule is successful, then it can able to interact with the database like obj open, insert. Obj open is not required, either inserting or updating. So these kind of things. So I can able to call this particular validate rule from the activity also, and we can able to call this from flow action also. And third thing is I can able to call this particular validate rule from another validate rule also. So I'll show you how to create the validate rule, and within that I can able to call another validate rule also. So these three are the places where we can able to call the validate rules from another validate rule also. Clear, right? So in the next classes we'll discuss about edit and constants. Now let us see how about validate rule. This is also called as an obj validate. So this can be created under process tab. Under process there will be one thing called validate. Okay, so this is one rule, and then other rule is edit validate. It can be created under data model category, edit validate. Okay, and the third thing is declare constraints. In case they'll ask you about declare constraints. So declare constraints can be created under decision category, and we call this as a constraint rule. Okay, using these three we can able to apply the validations. And apart from this, we can able to have these validation messages. Ultimately we have to check for the condition and we have to display messages only, right? So that is the purpose of these three rules. And as I told you, we can able to replace most of the rules with the activities. I can able to replace data transform with the activities. Data transforms need not be used also. If I have the permission to go for activities, I need not go for data transforms also. Similarly, for the validations also, we can directly go for activity like property set message. So this is one method where we can able to show the error messages directly on the property level. So these kind of messages. So ultimately we have to just check for the data and we have to show the error message. That's it, right? So these kind of error messages can be displayed using activities also. And if you want to display the messages across page level, meaning on clicking on submit button, if you want to display messages across the page level, we can go for another method called page set messages. So most of the rules can be replaced if we get a permission to go for activities, but the real situation will be vice versa. So wherever the thing, if you want, wherever the thing we can avoid for activities, we have to go for those rules. For the property setting, we have to go for data transforms only, not the activities. Performance will be reduced. Okay. For the data moved from the clipboard, sorry, from the data pages to data table, then we have to go for data pages or the report definition. We should not be going for activities. Okay. And for the validations, we can go for validation rules, not for the activities. So these are all the things. Clear, right? Any doubts so far?
Yes,
Maktulani?
No, Chandra, now I don't have it.
Clear now, both of you?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Okay. I want to ask you one thing. Shall we continue now, or do you want me to cover any other previous topic? So we have 20 minutes of time. I can able to cover this validate rule. And if you want me to have anything revised like the previous topic, I can able to do that. So you want me to do anything now, or shall we go for the validation? Why? Because this is completely new topic. So whatever the topics we are discussing, we have discussed so far, that is of one category and this is of another category. From here, all the rules will be different sector, which will not be interacting with the previous one. So that is the thing I want to just check now. Are you lagging in anywhere? Do you want me to explain for 15 to 20 minutes now, or shall we proceed? Yesterday, Tulan, you were asking me to do something, right? I mean, you were trying to ask something about previous rules, right? You want me to explain anything now? Shall we proceed?
Chandra, I have one doubt. Like, actually, I created one new frameworks. In that frameworks, I try to add the implementation class. Okay,
Okay, okay.
so that
Before that,
cases.
tell me one thing.
Uh,
We'll be having this kind of doubt clearing session now. We need not go for active validations rule now.
okay.
Okay, no, I'm not forcing. I just wanted to check with you. If we have many doubts, we'll be going in that perspective. That is the thing. Nothing more than that. If you're okay with all the topics, we'll proceed now with the validations. We don't have any problem. So if you want to have this particular 15 minutes of time for the doubt clearing session, I'll continue in that perspective. So I want to explain something brief also, or if you want to explain something in detail also, we'll think in that manner. That is the thing I'm trying to do, nothing more than that.
I think we can go for the doubt session.
Okay, okay. So I'm stopping this recording, okay?
Okay.
Not
Tulani, are you